You've been told to stay chill, always prepared to handle situations and make everyone around you feel at ease. But Carl Jung would tell you that goodness is a mask, and if you're not careful, it becomes a prison. Because people-pleasing doesn't make you kind, it makes you invisible. You don't get more respect by saying yes. You don't get more love by being easy to like. You don't get more peace by being passive. You just disappear quietly, and nobody notices. You think you're being helpful, cooperative, supportive, but the truth is you're abandoning yourself. And every time you do it, you teach the world that your needs don't matter, that your time is flexible, that your boundaries are optional, that your silence is approval. Carl Jung didn't see people-pleasing as politeness. He saw it as shadow in disguise, a behavioral mask to protect yourself from rejection, conflict, or disconnection. But here's the truth. The more you please, the more you'll be used, not because people are evil, but because people respond to what you allow. And if you never show the parts of you that want to say no, that want to disagree, that want to be left alone, you'll become a shell, a shape built to fit into everyone else's expectations. And one day you'll wake up and wonder why you're tired, why you're resentful, why you feel fake, why nobody actually sees you. Jung had a name for this: the persona, the mask you were told to wear. The persona is the version of you that was trained by your parents, your culture, your teachers to be acceptable, to fit in, to get approval, to avoid punishment, to survive. And you needed it. You still do in some ways. You can't walk through life saying everything you think, acting on every impulse. You need a mask for the world, for social roles, for peace. But here's the danger Jung warned about. When you believe your mask is your identity, you lose your soul, because you're not here to be agreeable. You're here to be real. You're not here to fit into everyone else's story. You're here to write your own. But you can't do that if your first instinct is to keep everyone comfortable. And this is what people-pleasers never realize until it's too late. Every time you avoid saying no, you say yes to self-eraser. The high cost of being liked. You think the cost of speaking your mind is conflict, but the real cost is resentment. You think saying no is selfish, but the real selfishness is staying silent, while secretly resenting everyone for not reading your mind. You think making people happy is noble, but the real nobility is having boundaries so clear that nobody has to guess who you are. Jung understood that repression creates distortion, and when you repress your ranger, your instincts, your voice, you don't become nicer. You become passive-aggressive, bitter, disconnected because you know deep down you're not being honest. You're performing, you're curating, you're managing people's emotions instead of expressing your truth. And eventually your body will show the signs. Tired all the time, burned out, disconnected, afraid to disappoint, overthinking every reply, overanalyzing every interaction. That's not sensitivity. That's emotional imprisonment. And it gets worse because the more you please people, the more you teach them to expect your compliance. You train them to walk all over you, and they will. Not always because they're cruel, but because you said yes so many times they stopped believing you had a no. You can't be loved if you're not known. The people you're trying so hard to please, they don't know the real you. They only know the curated version you've shown them. And you're afraid to change now, because if you suddenly set boundaries, they'll say you've changed. They'll say you're selfish. They'll say you're cold. But that's not the truth. The truth is they've just gotten used to your silence, your softness, your submission. And when you start being honest, it feels like aggression, not because you're hurting them, but because your honesty is finally protecting you. Jung would say, this is the moment where individuation begins. Individuation isn't self-improvement, it's self-possession. It's the process of becoming a full, integrated human being with a spine, a shadow, a voice, and a know that means something. And until you get there, you'll always feel slightly hollow, like something is off, like your life doesn't fully belong to you. That's not depression. That's your real self trying to wake you up, trying to scream through your fake smiles, trying to Cut through your agreeable emails, trying to break out of the script you've been acting out for years. And the only way out is to stop pleasing. What happens when you finally stop? People will get uncomfortable. Some will get angry. Some will leave. Some will try to guilt you back into being soft. Let them. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. Because you're not here to please people. You're here to be whole. You're here to say what needs to be said. To set boundaries that disappoint others but protect your soul. To walk away from people who only loved you when you were easy to control. Jung would tell you this isn't selfish. This is your awakening. And now we'll explore the psychology of that awakening. Why people-pleasing is rooted in childhood survival. How to recognize when your persona is running the show. And how to begin the process of breaking the pattern without losing your relationships or yourself. Carl Jung didn't call it people-pleasing. He called it a betrayal of the self. Because you weren't born this way. You didn't enter the world hoping to please everyone. You weren't designed to say yes when you meant no. You weren't built to hide your truth just to keep the peace. You were trained into it, molded, conditioned. And the worst part is you thought it was love. You thought staying quiet made you mature. You thought sacrificing your needs made you generous. You thought suppressing your emotions made you strong. But the truth, it made you disappear. And the person people love, the person they admire, depend on, praise, isn't really you. It's your persona, how the persona is formed. Jung defined the persona as the mask you wear to survive the demands of society. It's not fake. It's functional. You put it on to navigate school, family, relationships, work. It helps you fit in. It helps you get by. But when you start to identify with the mask, when you forget where it ends and you begin, you lose the one thing that makes life real, authenticity. And this is exactly what happens to chronic people-pleasers. Somewhere in childhood, they learned that being honest meant being rejected, that expressing frustration meant being punished, that having needs meant being selfish. So they adapted. They smiled when they wanted to cry. They said yes when they wanted to scream. They acted small so others could feel big. They learned that love isn't given, it's earned through performance. And so the mask became permanent. What Jung knew that modern psychology misses. Most modern advice tells you to speak up, set boundaries, take time for yourself. It sounds nice. But Jung went deeper. He believed people-pleasing is not just a behavior problem. It's a soul fracture. Because when you abandon your true self over and over again, you don't just lose your voice. You lose your identity. You start asking, who am I without this role? What if people leave when I stop giving? Will anyone stay if I finally say what I feel? These aren't surface-level fears. They're existential because your survival used to depend on being liked. And now you've confused being liked with being safe. But the problem is, every time you choose safety over truth, you lose a little more of yourself. You become someone others depend on, but no one really knows. And this is the secret most people never admit. The people-pleaser gets love, but it always feels fake because deep down you know they're loving a version of you that doesn't even exist. They're loving the agreeable you, the reliable you, the flexible you. But what happens when you're tired? What happens when you have limits? What happens when you finally say no more? That's when the love disappears and what's left? Guilt, silence, self-doubt. But Jung would say good because that's the beginning of your real-life individuation, becoming whole, not liked. Jung's idea of individuation is the antidote to people-pleasing. It's the process of reuniting with your shadow, the parts of you that you exiled to stay accepted, your anger, your selfishness, your pride, your truth. Individuation isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It's saying, yes, I care about others, but I care about myself too. Yes, I want peace, but not at the cost of my truth. Yes, I love you, but I won't abandon me to keep you. That's not rebellion, that's maturity. And if someone can't handle that, let them go. 'Cause Jung believed the self doesn't emerge through approval. It emerges through conflict, through confronting the people who are used to your silence, through disappointing those who only loved your compliance, through risking rejection to become real. And here's the twist. When you stop people-pleasing, you don't lose relationships. You lose imbalanced ones. You lose the people who benefited from your self-abandonment, and you make space for people who see you, love you, and can stand beside you without needing to control you. How to know your persona is controlling you? Jung said the persona is dangerous when it becomes too rigid. When you're always the strong one, always the nice one, always the calm one, always the understanding one, then it's not a tool, it's a cage. And you'll know you're trapped when you feel exhausted after socializing. You overthink every decision. You're afraid of letting people down. You say yes out of fear, not desire. You feel unseen even in close relationships. These are not small problems. They are signs that your identity is cracking under the pressure of performance. And the longer you pretend, the more lost you become. Not because you're weak, but because the mask has become too convincing. And now, even, you can't tell where it ends. But here's the good news. The moment you realize this, you're free to change. You don't need permission. You don't need everyone to understand. You just need courage. The courage to pause before you say yes. The courage to let people feel disappointed. The courage to walk away from approval and walk toward authenticity. Carl Jung didn't want you to become rude or cold. He wanted you to become so aligned with your truth that no one could manipulate you again. And now we'll explore exactly how to do that. How to stop feeling guilty for protecting your peace. How to build your identity outside of the nice role. And how to become someone who is respected, not just tolerated. All without becoming cold, bitter, or fake. By now, something inside you is shifting. You're starting to see how much of your life has been a performance. How much of your identity was built on keeping others comfortable. How often you've said yes when your whole body whispered no. And maybe for the first time you're asking the question, who am I when I stop pleasing? That's not an easy question. It's not just about changing your behavior. It's about changing the foundation of who you've been trained to be. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. Because when you stop pleasing people, you don't just lose comfort, you lose your former self. And what rises in its place isn't someone cruel or bitter. It's someone real. Someone who doesn't need to be like Toby at peace. Someone who doesn't need approval to feel worthy. Someone who can say no without guilt, and yes, without fear. That's what individuation really is. Not spiritual fluff, not moral perfection, but raw, uncomfortable truth becoming identity. So how do you become that person? Let's go step by step. 1. Recognize the guilt loop for what it is. When you first stop pleasing people, you'll feel guilt. You'll feel it in your stomach, in your throat, in your silence. You'll feel like you're being mean, like you're letting people down, like you're doing something wrong. But Jung would say, this is not guilt. This is withdrawal. You're detoxing from a life of approval addiction. You're experiencing the emotional discomfort, reclaiming your power after years of giving it away. Of course, it feels heavy, but that heaviness isn't proof you're wrong. It's proof you're finally moving. Let the guilt come. Don't fight it, don't overanalyze it, just feel it and do the right thing anyway. That show power returns in the space where guilt no longer dictates your actions. 2. Redefine your value. People pleasers get their worth from one thing, how useful they are to others. If you're helpful, you feel worthy. If you're needed, you feel safe. If you're liked, you feel important. But Jung would tell you this is not worth. It's conditional performance. And the danger, the moment you stop being useful, you feel replaceable. So the work is simple, but not easy. You must redefine what makes you valuable. Not your utility, not your sacrifice, not your compliance, but your truth. Your presence, your boundaries, your ability to be fully yourself, even when it disappoints people. That's where your real value lives. Not in what you do for others, but in what you no longer do against yourself. 3. Learn to disappoint without apology. Let this be your next milestone. You can disappoint people and still be good, still be kind, still be worthy. You can say no without over-explaining. without apologizing, without softening it to make them feel better. Because every time you soften your boundary to protect someone else's feelings, you reinforce the lie that your needs are dangerous. They're not. They're sacred. Carl Jung believed that the integration of the shadow is what makes someone whole, and your ability to be misunderstood without collapsing is part of that shadow work. You're not here to manage how everyone feels about you. You're here to be rooted in who you are, especially when people don't understand it. 4. Start small. Stay unshakable. You don't need to announce your new identity. You don't need to prove how confident you are. You don't need to argue with everyone. Who doubts you? Just start small. Don't respond right away. Don't explain every no. Don't over-apologize for things that aren't wrong. Don't offer more than you want to give. Let it be quiet. Let it be consistent. And soon something magical happens. People begin to recalibrate their expectations around you. They stop pushing. They stop assuming. They stop draining because you've trained them through your silence, your firmness, and your peace that you're no longer here to please. You're here to be whole. 5. Embody the new standard. Once you stop pleasing, you'll start attracting differently. People whole-loved your compliance will fall away. Let them. That's proof you are being used, not loved. And in their place will come people who respect your silence, match your honesty, support your growth, love you for your truth, not your performance. But this only happens if you embody the new standard, not once, not when it's easy, but every day in every conversation where you feel that old part of you wanting to bend again. Don't bend. Feel the urge. Hold the line. Breathe through the moment. Because every time you don't betray yourself, you grow stronger. And that strength, that subtle, grounded, quiet self-possession is what Jung believed leads to actual transformation. Not outer success, not validation, but internal integrity. Final words. You'll stop pleasing people after this. Not because you've become cold, but because you've become conscious. Carl Jung didn't want you to become cruel. He wanted you to become awake, to stop performing, to stop fawning, to stop bleeding your soul out for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. He wanted you to become someone who is clear in your no, honest in your presence, grounded in your discomfort, whole even if it makes others uncomfortable. Because the ones who are truly healed are not the ones who are always liked. They are the ones who are free.